Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Magazine podcast. I'm Chris Eggett, the editor of the magazine.
And I'm Charlie, the online editor.
How you doing, Charlie?
I'm full of cold. It's not COVID, it's fine, I've done a test, but I'm going to be probably an octave lower than normal.
Yeah.
Just as an FYI.
So if you listen to this podcast just to hear Charlie go woohoo after I say something in like a complete monotone, then sadly this is not the podcast for you.
if
go for a walk. Have fun.
Random cuts, it's because I'm like coughing in the corner. Like, this sentence doesn't pick up perfectly. Yeah. My bad.
So we've got a new issue.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a new issue of the magazine.
Woohoo!
Out Friday just gone.
Yes.
We'd usually have a podcast up that week, but we had other things going on.
There's a lot going on.
And we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah!
But it's a new issue. We are talking about many exciting things in it, including one of my new favourite games. It might be the game of next year.
Ooh, bold statement. We've only just decided what the game of this year was.
I know, but that's how it happens. You do it at the end. But we're talking about Oltree, which is a maybe the most complex Anton Bowser game out there. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Considering I immediately connect him with Takenoko.
Yeah, Takenoko, or the one about fireworks that I've forgotten the name of for some reason, the one that spilled yards.
Oh my god.
I've completely forgotten.
Hand to make... I don't know, that one.
Anyway, French fireworks games included. A lot of his games are very sort of family focused, but with like a couple of like really interesting hobbyist things in there that make you go, wow, this is really clever that he's done this, and that's why he's probably one of the best in the business. Maybe the best in the business after this. I don't know. We'll come to that later. We'll come to that next year at the awards.
Bold statement. Calm down.
I'm very excited. I've played it quite recently, so that's why I'm hyped. We've also got a spread on the Juniverse, which is all of the Dune games that have come out this year or last year, and are going to come out. We're giving you a sneak peek and a sort of guide to all of those. We also talked to Horrible Guild about just the fact that they are a group of people who make games who are never like each other. They are always new. And we kind of get in behind that process, and it's just quite a funny interview because they're frankly funny lads.
Great fun. I really like the look of their new game. I keep seeing it come up on TikTok.
Which one?
It's I can't remember the name, but it's dice throwing, but you do the dice from like...
Oh yeah, this is the Dungeon Fighter RPG.
Yeah.
Yes.
It looks really cool.
Which is another name I've forgotten there, because we're all professionals here. We've also got Rome Total War. We're chatting about that. We're also chatting about Voidfall. Rome Total War, you know, because it's a video game, and Voidfall, you know, because it's David Tercey. They're about fighting, but in interesting ways, in ways that you don't quite get with the usual war game. We also got 29 games reviewed, including Snakes, which we'll talk about later. Alien RPG Colonial Marines, which we'll talk about later. Life Siphon, which we won't talk about. We also have a review of Colossal, which we've talked about already on the podcast. So we've got a review of that, and then a nice indie hit, I think it's fair to say. And yeah, new issue is out in the shops right now. Go out and get it, or come to the website, tabletopgaming.co.uk, to buy a copy right now.
Or check with your friendly local game store.
Or chat with your local friendly game store.
Or ask them to stock it, they can do that too.
Yeah, or become a stockist yourself and go door to door in your local area.
That's a level of commitment.
Yeah. Just giving them to people as a sort of evangelical board gamist.
Oh, I've got the song from Book of Mormon in my head now. That's not going anywhere.
How does that one go?
I'm not... Okay, on one, I'm not singing it, and on two, I'm definitely not singing it when I sound like this.
Isn't there... is it a Friends thing or a Seinfeld thing where they have a whole joke about they get like one of the characters gets a cold and they think their voices sound sexier when they're singing?
Oh, it's Phoebe in Friends.
Yeah, okay, it's Friends. Yeah, fine. I thought it was a Seinfeld thing.
Yeah, no, that's not accurate. I can confirm. Singing in the car this morning was it not?
Was it not suddenly sultry and
no, it wasn't. It was dreadful.
You didn't expect it to come out.
My poor passenger. She's so polite to me, but I don't think she enjoyed it.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some other things. The reason this podcast is late is because we had our award show.
Woo!
On Saturday.
Yeah.
Which was on our website.
Yep.
And this is our first ever award show. We like a real one where everyone voted on it. You
Okay, so last year,
Yeah, last
we
year.
were like, at last minute, we were like, we should totally do some awards. And then we just had great fun, didn't we? We were like, what can we think of to give awards to?
Yeah.
And then came up with some bonkers titles, had some great fun with it. But this year, we grew up and went, okay, let's do it properly.
Yeah. So we had a period of nominations where people nominated the public, the great unwashed. That's you.
Rude. How rude.
The great recently cleaned. Voted on your...
Disclaimer, this is not the views of Tabletop Gaming.
Okay, fine, it's not. You've nominated your picks. Then we swooped in with a group of writers from the magazine. We picked our favourites from your favourites and put a final 3 out for each category based on their sort of contributions to the hobby, and also your comments when you nominated as well. And that led to what turned out to be a fierce battle in the final week of voting.
Surprisingly fierce.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a landslide for, especially on some of them. I was like, oh, that one will totally win.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really quite well divided.
Yeah. Most of them had like 5 or 10% for like the runaway winners and stuff in them.
Yeah.
You know, most of them anyway. And then a couple of them were literally three votes in it. And this is I've not worked out how to say this yet, really, because I've said it so many times. I've been saying it wrong because no one understands quite what I'm saying. But there was 1,500 voters.
Unique voters
who voted. Each of those voters voted up to 11 times, as in, that's to say, they could have voted in each category as they went through. So when I say 1,500, I mean that they could have voted, that most of the competitions were between that many votes overall.
Yeah.
But so there was only 3 votes in it for a couple of them.
Yeah.
Well, for one of them in particular.
I can't remember which one that was now.
It's the was it the I'm Still Playing This?
Anyway, so there was someone that turned around and said on Twitter, bless him, he was like, oh, I was up against the licensed games.
Oh, well, Chris Bissett.
Thank
Of
you.
The Room. Oh, yes.
I was having Chris in my head, but I couldn't get past Chris McDowell. I was like, I know that's not right.
No.
But I can't remember what his last name is.
It's close, though, because it's an indie RPG
It was driving me nuts.
writer from Manchester.
And I was like, I can't just go Chris, because there's plenty of them. You're even one of them.
Yeah.
So I can't just use that. Anyway, he made a comment about how he was
I'm even one of them.
up against the licensed game, so there was no way he was going to win, or something like that. And I had a look at the votes. There really wasn't a lot in it.
Yeah, so this is the category of best way to die in an RPG.
Yes.
Which Alien won for the second year in a row.
They have good deaths. What can you say?
Yeah, it's and Andrew Gasker's acceptance speech is very good and very funny, and you should go watch the video, which includes that. In it, but as you say, yeah, Chris was very much saying, "Hey, I'm not gonna win." Because I'm an indie guy, and these guys are.
Because this stuff is really good. This
is what he was saying.
I think there was only a couple of % in it.
Yes,
from
it was still tiny. Yeah.
It was close, and I remember sort of like, should I tweet him and tell him, or is that just like rubbing salt in the wounds? Like, I don't want to, but I also want to be like, it's really good. Like, everyone appreciates it's really good. It's just like it got pipped a little bit, but that's not to say any of the ones that got nominated that didn't get it aren't, because you saw how it was with party games. So when Chris sent me over the sort of mini shortlisty style, and then went pick 3 from the categories that you know, so party games I feel like is my jam. And you asked me for nominations, and in my brain I just went, can we do a game of cat and mouse but like 3 times, because that's my favourite party game. But when the nominations came through and then the actual final sort of shortlist came through, all of them I was like, if any of these win, I would be buzzing. And obviously one has to win, so it's going to be a great time all round.
That's the sad thing about awards, isn't it?
Is that someone has to lose?
Someone has to lose, and you actually just want to say, it was great that you were here at all. Like, you were so well appreciated that you're here. You know, it's
I love
really
herd mentality. That's great fun. I think the only downside to herd mentality is the fact that I want the pink swishy cow, and you're not supposed to want the pink swishy cow.
Yeah,
that's a bad thing to get the pink swishy cow.
Yeah.
And then Scorpion Mask did the other one that we had, which was Masterword.
Yes.
Which is one of my favourite ones for us to play, and we played a lot over Zoom.
Yeah.
So that was a really good like lockdown one for me. So I was like, any one of these could win, and I'll be delighted. don't get me wrong, I'm buzzing that it was a game of cat and mouse, because that was probably my game of 2021, because it took me so by surprise, and I loved it. But any of them could have won, and I'd have been like, this is the best day ever.
It's probably my favourite party game of the year.
It's good, isn't it?
As well. Yes, I don't actually have a copy of that, so I might have to actually go and invest.
Don't buy it from. There's
a video online.
If you're familiar with our YouTube, I did a "Is this the worst fake ever?" Where someone in my family who found it hilarious that I didn't name them, and I was like, well, obviously I'm not going to name you. That's really embarrassing because you've been a bit of a silly person. Bought some from Amazon last year. Bought 2 as gifts for 2 separate friends, and ended up with a game of cat and mouse, which was a micro unplayable version of the game. So if you're going to get it, please use friendly local game stores and reputable sources.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. What an embarrassing box that was.
Go watch that video. Like, it's just.
You should go watch the video. It's maybe my favourite video Charlie's done.
I had a great time. And I was really pleased because everyone says the videos that you're most proud of are the ones that always bomb. And it hasn't bombed. So I'm like, thank God for that.
Well,
I've been so upset.
It's just so funny. It's just genuinely funny.
So stupid.
So anyway, congratulations to all of our winners.
Yes.
You should go to the website. You should go check out our YouTube and go check out our awards show. Where at the end there's a very special announcement.
Woo!
Which we'll also announce here.
Yay!
So Tabletop Gaming Live traditionally comes to you from Alexandra Palace
Ali Pally
in London. This year, or next year, it's not. It didn't. In fairness, it didn't come to you from there last year either because it was cancelled.
Yeah, COVID. Both this year and last year, we were like, best not.
Yeah, we felt it was the right thing. That was the right thing to do. And so we are moving somewhere else. We're going somewhere else, and we're going to Manchester.
Yeah.
So we're going to the Victoria Warehouse, which is these, frankly, cool cotton mills.
It's cool.
It's got like a nice industrial vibe, in like, again, a cool way. It's very much the Dungeons end of Dungeons and Dragons. Again, in a cool way. I'm trying to make sure you're well aware of how cool it is.
It's a really quirky little venue, isn't it? And I like that we're a bit quirky for our enjoyment of like a niche hobby, because it is technically a niche hobby, and we're going somewhere that is just as sort of quirky as we are, that I think will fit right in. Like we suit the venue really well in Manchester. Other highlights include we've got some cracking food vans. This has been a full-on like across the office discussion, because the food is important.
It is very important.
Like the last event that I went to, the food options weren't.
Yeah, it was disappointing at UK Games Expo. We're going to name and shame it.
No.
UK Games Expo, the food was disappointing.
Only because I think I hyped it up in my head because it was the first event that I'd been to since like lockdown. And prior to lockdown, it's like you get the cool food vans that serve you weird stuff, or like stuff you wouldn't normally have.
Exactly.
I love that stuff. And I ended up with a hot dog, but it was a very nice hot dog. It was an £8 hot dog.
It was £8 hot dog, which was fine. We were totally fine with that. But it was, your options were 3 kinds of pork.
Yeah, it was.
It was like that. It was pulled pork sandwiches. Again, very nice. I didn't have one. They looked very nice. And then what else was there? There was something else which was also pork based. And so, which is all fine. That's absolutely fine. It's how big events in big halls.
Burgers.
Was there burgers?
Yeah. So not pork, but still.
I'm sure they had bacon on them. Anyway. It's absolutely fine, and I think we could safely say that the Ali Pali, the pizza was quite good. But if you've been to Aircon and enjoyed the quality of the food vans there,
I think this was also the problem that I had with UK Games Expo, is that you guys kept hyping up how good Aircon food was, and you couldn't wait to have that food again. And then it wasn't there, and I was sad.
Yeah, it was exactly
like my food.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have the I don't know, the Greek wrap place or whatever it was. At Aircon. I know exactly. They put chips in the wrap. It's great.
Interesting.
It's actually a secret.
Not sure how I feel
it
about
unlocks
that.
something in you when you have it for the first time.
Okay. I'll withhold judgment. What's the? You know what I mean?
It's really good, honestly. There's people who are listening to this going, Charlie, you don't know yet. You don't know.
You don't know, man. I don't know, and I want to. I love a good
also
go out for the day.
The bar's going to be open late as well, so that'd be nice.
Yeah, boy.
So it's a little bit more of a party vibe. And gaming will go until midnight, I think, on the Saturday. I think that's right. And we'll have a good time.
It's going to be great.
We've got some nice sponsors on board already.
Oh, we've got great
from
sponsors.
the
I'm so
local
excited.
area. The biggest of which I would say is probably Steamforged, because they're bloody giant. They do giant minis. That's what they do.
Yeah, they do.
They're joining us at the show. We'll give you more news about their involvement as we carry on. We've also got All or Nothing, local stalwarts and winners of several must-play awards from us.
Yeah, I think whenever I talk about them, I'm like, they're just the ones that do all the games that we really like.
Yeah,
just basically it. They either get a yes or a must-play. It seems.
Yeah, Tristan doesn't really put out bad stuff, and that's very good. So he's coming along. Who else have we got?
You've got Tabletop Manchester.
Tabletop Manchester, the largest board game club in Manchester.
And they're lovely. And Fanboy 3.
And Fanboy 3, who I haven't seen the store. You've seen the store.
I've seen the store. The store is so wonderful. Okay, so I'm used to like my small normal, like we've got as like the top list and then a couple of other little Dungeons and Dragons bits. You walk in and it's like that feeling if you're a book fan and you walk into like a massive bookstore. It's like that feeling because everything is there. If you can think of it, it's there. You turn left and you've got like all the sort of RPGs and things like that, and then you go through the miniature stuff, and then you go through like the top. Here's the most recent stuff. So they've got like just a thing of Descent. That was, I mean, that box is beautiful, but when there's like 10 of them stacked up, you're like, oh my god. And then carrying around your normal games, I mean like the ones that you can pick up. So there was genuinely a conversation that a girl in there was having about Mysterium and trying to remember what Mysterium was. It was so hard for me not to be like, hi, can I tell you about this game please, because you're going to really like it, and Mysterium is great, and you can also have Mysterium Park. And I was like, no Charlotte, stop, like calm down. But everything,
I mean,
party games, dice games,
should have done that.
Oh, I was very tempted, but I was like trying to film round at the time, and I was like, we interrupt this broadcast so that Charlie can fangirl over Mysterium with somebody else in the shop. And then after all of this stuff, so I don't think I've ever properly seen that many games together.
Okay.
So which is really, really nice. And then you can go downstairs and they've got the same amount of space, which is a big old space for like organised play or play space. Yeah. So they've got big Calaxes, because the Calaxes are everywhere, all ordered by how many players they are. So these are your 2-player games, these are your whatever players. Nice. All the way around that
That's
you can
an interesting way to organise your games. I like that.
For what it's used for, it's very, very good. And just a ton of space. So I know they do like tournaments and bits and bobs. We were there sort of from when they opened, so obviously none of that's going on. But even while we were there, there's people going down and playing games, and you're like, this is just wonderful. Like, can I move to Manchester just to have this on my doorstep? Yeah. Because it's wonderful. So I have got a video planned that will come at some point. Just needs a little bit of editing, and there's also a TikTok available, so if you want a quick glimpse, there's a 30-second sort of TikTok and reel that you can go check out and see what they're like. But that, in addition to how knowledgeable they are and how welcoming they are, because that's the other thing, I talk a lot about the difference between local game store and friendly local game store and how you feel walking in, and you do just feel at home. It's just really nice. So I had a great time. Excellent. And I'm really for that reason I'm really pleased they're sponsors, because it gives me an excuse to go back quite regularly. So that's very exciting. We're going to give you more news on them as we carry on as well. Because they're doing cool stuff.
Because like these are our sponsors, but you know they're a bit more than sponsors. They're our friends too.
That sounded so cheesy.
So join us in Manchester next September on the 17th and 18th.
So you know how advent calendars work.
Yeah. So we've got a few left.
We've got a few left.
I'm going to say we've got like, I don't know, a handful, I'm going to say, that's worth you considering for your loved ones.
Or for yourself.
Now. Yeah, I mean, you are a loved one of yourself, we hope, if you've got a healthy relationship with your self-identity.
It's just a great present.
So, yes, it's a really good present to get yourself or anyone else. And it is 24 brackets 25 actually days of presents to open. And so last year, right, we've recently promoted this to a couple of around the internet to various friends and family, including the Polyhedron Collider guys, who went, "What? 250 quid?" Which I think is like how a lot of people react to it, because then they went on to say, "Oh, I've seen these before. They're just full of promo cards."
Yeah, okay. So this is in reference to the
the Brett Spiel. Yeah, Brett Spiel.
Which was just promo cards for various different things. So it's cropped up a couple of times, people saying this, and I fully understand why, because that's the only thing we've got to base it on. This is completely different. This is, you're getting fully fledged games, you're getting everything. There is nothing in there that you have to have a specific game in order to make use of.
Yep.
Everything in there can be played or used as is without needing, this promo card is no use to me because I've not got this game. There's none of that. We've not got promo cards in there.
No.
Because we've just got actual stuff.
Yeah.
Physical stuff.
Yeah.
And this year we've fully upped the RRP, like the what it's worth.
Yeah.
So you're getting a great ton of stuff. And that was the other thing. We got a comment sort of saying that I could probably buy all the stuff secondhand or on comparison sites for less than what it is you're paying for it.
And the answer is no, you can't. You absolutely can't.
That was a fun lunch break where I sat there being like, but I wonder if you can. And I literally went through and calculated all of them from BGG, from board game price. Oh, what's the price? The price comparison. Board game prices. Yeah. And then what I could find on Board Game Trade and Chat as well, to try and be like, how cheap can I get this stuff that's in the advent calendar? And I got something like halfway through and had already exceeded the thing. And the full amount was something like, if you bought everything, it was like £530, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was including second-hand versions.
Yeah.
Whereas ours were obviously brand new.
And in fact, also, some of them are unreleased. Some of them are maybe never going to be released as well. So, like, you don't want to miss out on this.
Oh, it's cool.
If you're vaguely interested in it at all, you really need to pull the trigger. Because
I have said a couple of times, like, I'm almost sad that I know what's in it, because I know that it's so good that I want to buy it to have my own, like, excitement every day.
Yeah.
But I already know what's in it.
Yeah.
So it's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's all starting to arrive as well at Tabletop HQ.
Yes.
So you just see people walk in with like massive boxes on like the little carry thingamajiggies, and you're like, oh my god, that's so wonderful. And then equally, oh my god, we're wrapping those.
Yeah, there's a lot of wrapping to do. It's so good. I say this every time I talk about it. It's like people are actually going to be emotional about how good it is. Yeah. What it's going to do is on those 24, 25 days of Christmas leading up to Christmas Day, you're going to be opening a present every day and be filled with the potential of the fun you're going to have with that game. The only downside I could possibly see is you might have anxiety about what order to play them in once you start opening them. Like, so that's the only downside I can possibly imagine, because there's so much in there.
There's cool stuff.
And there's stuff you're not going to necessarily know you love immediately, and you might not have picked up, and then you're going to end up loving it. It's going to be a way into bits of the hobby that you didn't know that you loved.
Yeah. I think there's already, like, let's be real, there might be stuff in there that you don't like. There might be a day or two where you're like, this isn't my side of the hobby that I particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
But because they're all, I think all bar one have been released in the last, 18 months?
Yeah, 18 months, yeah.
So the resell is still quite high.
Most of it's like this year. Some of it was released last month. And again, I'm going to say it again, some of it's not released till next year.
Yeah.
So, and some of it will never be released.
So I saw even on one of them, so we've released the publishers so you can have an idea of what it might be that you get inside. So sort of certain things, and there's certain ones on there where it can only be one thing. And there's already been like comments being like, oh, I'll buy this off you. If you've bought this and you don't want that, I'll buy it off you. Yeah. So to be fair, you can probably make money back on it, but just on bits that like little niggly bits. So there is a sense of realism in there that might happen. But
we do also have to come clean as well, which is the website says the RRP is over £550. It's actually over £600. But we didn't want to change it again because it looks weird when we do that.
We added some cool bits in. We got a bit carried away, but in like a really good way that benefits whoever buys it, because we just got overexcited.
That's how we've got 25 days. some games are like coming together, so some days you actually get 2 games. It's just it's a lot of good stuff.
We got excited.
And there's people kicking themselves for not getting it. Understand it's a lot of money. If you can't afford it, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But if you can, it's worth the punt to make your family's Christmas even better. In fact, you could buy it for your family as a whole and quite happily play.
You could
most
easily.
of it.
I like the daily. It's
Yeah.
gonna be fun.
Oh yeah, but you could buy it like and
Yeah,
open
totally.
them together as a
Yeah,
family
yeah.
every day, and this day you can play, and this day you can play.
Yeah.
It's it's going to be great.
It's gonna be great.
So very excited about that. Okay, so we're going to actually talk about the magazine now. We're going to actually talk about the magazine now.
However long we are into this,
Yeah.
and now we're like, oh yeah, magazine.
Yeah.
Shows we're doing cool stuff.
So, I'm going to very briefly, by which I mean to some extent, talk about Oltree. Oltree. I can't do French. So this is Anton Bowser's latest game. It's based on a OSR RPG from France of the same name, Oltree, and by I believe John Gumpf, I think is how we say it. But there is an umlaut over the U, so I'm sorry about that. Do you want to have a go?
I mean, my brain ultimately goes goof, but then I did GCSE German and did a very poor job of it. And had I known I'd go into a career with board games, then the Spiel des Jahres would have been something I actually focused on and could say and spell correctly.
Yes.
But
I can't spell Spiel.
Missed opportunity. I always think I'm doing it right, and then it's always wrong. And
That's right. Let me start by saying what the board game is, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the RPG, because obviously, so part of my love of this is the fact that it's an OSR RPG that's kind of interesting and stuff like that. And I love indie RPGs. That's my jam most of the time. So the idea that Anton Bowser, maybe the premier French designer, has gone and made this game, a board game of it. In fact, he says in the interview, like he had 2 options. He could either run the game, but he couldn't because it was COVID. So he had his only other choice was to make a board game of his friend's game, and he did. What it is a mix of narrative storytelling, dice rolling, sort of worker placement, and then there's like a Euro economic puzzle in there as well. So your heroes returning, and I say heroes, you are rangers, knights of the realm, sort of, but like in a sort of kind of more muddy, earthy way. So there's a pinch of magic here, but not too much. There's not tons of wizards. Anyway, you're returning home, and it turns out you're home. I feel like it's Return to the Shire narrative of you return home and things are not as you left them. Your castle is in ruins, pretty much. Around you, the local villages are having a spot of bother, and they all want help at once. So what you and your buddies are going to do is spend your time fixing up the castle, heading out to look after the 8 villages around your main village, which also have actions you can take when you're there. That's sort of the worker placement element of it. And also you will deal with the problems they're having. Each area has a little deck of cards on it that's split out from the main deck, which you create at the start of the game by mashing together 2 themed sets of cards. So that might be like animals and beasts, and that's a bad example, they're the same thing. Animals and nature or spirits or whatever, and you mash these together, and that gives you sort of a flavour of the kind of adventures and problems people are going to be having as you carry on. You then pick your characters. You have things like health and stuff like that. You have an ability based on who you are, which is going to help you when it comes to rolling dice. The narrative of the game is these beautiful like little books. Basically, they're presented as books. So you turn one page over. It's got the text on the left hand page, and then the back of the next page has the illustration to go with that first page. So it's just beautiful. It's like everything about it's wonderful. The track of actions is again roll a dice. You move on 1 or 2 or 3. It's kind of like got a tape loop thing to it. So you if once you pass the end, you hit the story time again, basically, and you turn the next page of the story. But you could hit, on your way there, you could hit add another one of these danger cards to a particular area. If you have 4 in any of them, you start losing prestige, and things like that. Or you could add like an event to a location, and that sort of thing. So, and all of that sounds like I've described 17 different mechanics. I feel like I'm describing Oath again. I feel like every time I do it, I'm like, when I try and explain how it works, I'm best off not, and just saying it's a narrative game with everything you like in it. It's got a bit of everything in it, right? So when I played it, my first game, I got really focused on the economic puzzle of it, which is making sure your castle has the right areas in it. You know, does it have a smith? Does it have an armory? Does it have like a library? Because each of these things gives you an extra dice to roll when you're doing challenges. So you can always use your normal dice, or the dice associated with your character. You might be a fighty character, so you've got fight. So when it comes to doing a fight challenge, you roll 1 fight dice. If you've also got an armory, you may also roll a second dice, and then you get a number of wins on that, and an option to sometimes take damage to your character to get another victory on that, or another success. The way those little challenges work is the person next to you reads you what's going on, and then you roll the dice, but you don't know how many successes are on there, and that person is not allowed to tell you how many successes. It's not how many you need, because one success will always be a success, but multiple successes can be very advantageous sometimes. So sometimes you'll get 2 successes, get 3 successes, you get loads of stuff, right? Anyway, and it's all done by, I say worker placement, but you are moving around the board in a way like using action points, basically. So you have to sort of cross through the castle to get to the other side, which means that sometimes things are slightly too far away. So it's worker placement, but with a sense of distance between doing certain things, which is usually a worker placement thing. You can just go from the heavens down to where you want to go. Anyway, what all of this does is creates a game where you can get focused on one little thing, but actually you need to keep an eye on the whole picture, because the story it's telling you will tell you the events that are going to come up, like the world events that are going to come up later. So the first game I played, a portal opened. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I basically said is, there's a portal. Well, let's not worry about that. Because there's no way for you to interact with it at that time.
I feel like innately they're either very good or very bad.
Well, this is the thing. It started off being very good. It chucked us some resources to begin with, which therefore furthered my gluttony of going around and making sure I was building loads of stuff, so that whatever happened, it's one of those things of like where you've overbuilt your engine in the game. So we built up some stuff, but I'd ignored some of the other victory conditions, and that's the thing. You don't know how you're going to win the game at the start, because that only gets revealed to you as you progress through that story. And so there's a little bit of like playing like the detective games in it, because you're like, okay, so there's stories in front of me. There's a portal. It's throwing good stuff at me. Is that going to change? And well, you can answer that yourself, because I don't want to spoil it for you. But because when you play this game, you'll be like, that is very funny. That's very good that happened. And it's incredible because the thing is, I should have known what was coming because of all the hints the book gave me. And I didn't, and I just got hooked on this one little bit of it. But that wasn't a failure of the game. That was a failure of me. And you need to hold it all in your head at once in this sort of very holistic way, which is, again, like I said, it's very like Oath, because it has that thing of like the way it encourages you to engage with the game in a completely different way to a lot of other games.
What's the player count on this one?
Goes up to 4.
Interesting. Does it do solo?
You could definitely play it solo, yeah.
That's what it sounds like. I'm thinking like, that's quite a good...
Oh yeah, I mean,
I could sit and spend a couple of hours with it.
I played the prototype, so I don't have a real copy of this. I'm a bit sad because yes, I would play this solo for sure.
That'd be cool.
It would be really good. It would be really good. Yes, 1 to 4, I think.
Nice.
you could definitely, even if it's not, you could definitely solo it somehow. You could just two-hand it or something.
Yeah, make mechanics.
The only thing is, you'd know the success counts.
Yes.
So you'd maybe have to hide that or something like that. But that's something that's easily managed by those of you who are already home brewing your solo rules. So,
yeah. It's almost standard practice at this stage.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to very briefly talk about the RPG that it's based on. French RPG by Drogov, and it is a collaborative world-building RPG with hexes, where the GM is encouraged to set the scene initially, but then it's a series of drawing things from the deck, putting them in front of the players, and then asking the players, what do you think happened? And, and then they describe what happened. And so between you're building a world in a way where the GM can be surprised, and not just because, yet again, your characters have tried to kill someone immediately, or whatever, or they're trying to seduce the barman again. It's not that, although that obviously can happen. The world itself is built by the players as you go through it, and to me that sounds super exciting. Also, it uses loads of D8s. D8s are the main dice roll in this game, which sounds bonkers to me. Can you imagine?
Unusual.
Can you imagine rolling D8s?
Sure.
Yeah. Except for damage, possibly.
I mean, they crop up, but they're never the main feature.
That's right.
I say that and I can always feel the comments going, but this game has it as the main feature. I know, it's an offhand comment.
There's Gunther himself says, his experiences of running the game, where there's multiple tables running it in the same room, is that it only takes 5 minutes for the worlds to diverge wildly, because something randomly comes up the deck. They look at it, the players decide what it is, and there's a general rule of if a player says something is likely, it's probably a 50% chance it's true, which is a hilarious guide for a GM. It's they might be right, yeah. And therefore you've got this game where you've rebalanced the world building, the weight of having to plan everything, and it allows you to do that sort of hex crawl thing in a way that doesn't leave it all to the GM to meticulously plan everything, and that's really good. I think that feels almost like much more collaborative, joyful experience, where everyone gets a stake in the world. Sadly, it's only in French at the moment. I've asked them to translate it for us, please. We'll update
Google
you.
Translate just doesn't cut it.
It absolutely does not. I suppose I could learn French. I suppose that's the thing. But I'm
just an offhand. Yeah, I'll just learn French.
Yeah, I suppose I could one day. But they'll probably have it translated by the time I'm proficient enough to read it. So look out for that for when that lands eventually, because that will be your new favourite. So Charlie, you played some games.
I played some games. I think I've worked out that my niche where I'm most happy is sort of either RPGs that I don't have to do anything, party games,
so just to say,
and detective games.
Through that whole Oltree RPG thing, Charlie did have a look on her face, which was this doesn't sound. This isn't I don't.
No, do you know what? Actually, no, it does sound great. When I say I don't do anything, I mean I don't have to DM them.
Yeah.
Well, I can just be a participant.
Yeah.
Love that. When I have to run it.
Yeah.
Less so.
Also, this is very much like being on someone else's podcast, I think. Because there are a few times I've been on someone else's podcast, I've been like, this is brilliant, I'm not worried about the audio quality, that's someone else, I'm not thinking about edits, I'm not thinking about anything like that.
Yeah,
it's
same thing.
And it's just I'm just having a really good time.
Yeah, I just enjoy playing D&D. Can I DM it? Maybe not.
You definitely
I can do all right, but I don't enjoy it as much as just being able to sit there and be like, yeah, so I cast Fireball. And it's well, you shouldn't. It's ha ha ha, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
There is a difference there. So my niches are RPGs that I can play and not DM. My detective games and party games.
Yep.
They're my
That's it.
I'm happiest in those areas. Yep. So, snakes.
This is at the end, right?
It is. There's 3.
Yeah.
Because I have to make sure when I type it, I make sure that I put the appropriate number of S's.
I don't know why, I kept writing this at the start. So I was doing snakes.
It's too aggressive. No, you go for the after. For context, Snakes is a new big potato game that has beautiful artwork.
Yep.
I love it so much. It's really, really vivid. And they actually sent us it in a box that had that same artwork on, and I never want to get rid of it, but I equally don't know what to do with it. But inside Snakes is a mongoose of truth. as like a massive meeple, which is great fun. And then some weird and funky questions. Please see a brief interlude. Why, Chris? Is there a brief interlude?
So the batteries in the Zoom recorder that I'm using ran out, and we just didn't notice for the last 5 minutes of this chat. So
having a lovely chat.
It was really good.
On snakes. It was great fun.
It was. We were vibing. It was great. We got to the point where Charlie had just explained that there was a mongoose in the box. And the box was lovely, and that there's some weird questions in there.
I should also explain there has been a 2-day gap in between what you'll have heard and where we are now. Yeah. So my voice, I appreciate, sounds very different as well, because we are further in the progression of a cold. Yeah. Yay.
Oh, I've also been off ill, so like it's
just the lurgy at Tabletop HQ. But the logic being is that I may repeat stuff is what I'm more worried about than anything else, because this conversation was 2 days ago. However, snakes with this, it's great. It's just great fun. It's very much a sort of social deduction-y game, which my game group love. Chuck is a party game, cracking, we're happy. Chuck is a social deduction game. We are the sneakiest, like, we just love outsmarting each other. So they're always a win. But basically you have cards that will have questions on, and there'll be something that's quite obscure. So it's difficult to really know what the answer is. You could easily justify any of the answers that are on the card. And within that, you have one player who is the snake. Now, the snake knows what the answer is, but must convince everybody else of the wrong answer. So pick something else, and if they vote for the wrong answer at the end, the snake gets the point. So happy days. The only reprise from that you have is the Mongoose of Truth, which is a massive mongoose meeple. Don't often see a mongoose meeple, and I'm quite sad about it. Now I know that mongoose meeples exist, I sort of want them across the board. I want like an army of them across my work desk.
That's Charlie's first Kickstarter game.
Just army of mongoose. It'd be great. I could get so many people involved.
Like Mongoose-ageddon?
Maybe.
No, never mind.
Well, TBC on the name.
Yeah.
But the player that has the Mongoose of Truth is the only player who is, for certain to be truthful in their answer. They don't know what the answer is, but they're going to be honest about what they think. The problem is, obviously, they can be swayed by the snake, so you don't know for certain, but you can sort of trust their instinct. Which is easier said than done when their instinct is different to your instinct, and you know you're not the snake, but you sort of want to convince everybody else that your answer is right, and actually they don't think it's that, but then somebody else is saying something else, or they agree with you, and then you're looking at them going, are you agreeing with me because you're the snake, or are you agreeing with me because the Mongoose of Truth is just being really silly in what they think? And you end up, you question each other, you question yourself, you just question, are you the snake, could you be this, why is this? And it all sort of tumbles into a big fun game that I really enjoyed, and my group really enjoyed as well.
That's right. And the questions are sort of quite strange. I think this comes to your reservation about the game. So the only reservation that I potentially have about this game is actually a positive. So we've played it every single time we've got together, and what that's meant is we're rinsing through the questions quite quickly. Now don't get me wrong, there's a big old stack, there's a lot of them, so it's not a case necessarily that I think we're going to run out anytime soon, but I think at this rate we may well run out. And the difficulty is, because the questions are so distinctive, I think we're going to remember what the answers are. Yeah.
So either I, as the person with the game, can't then play the game very much, or I have to swap to a new crowd, but not be, always be the snake. Or do you know what I mean? Always, it sort of minimises it. No, it's a really easy fix, because if it's popular, they just issue more cards. But it is... You
could always be the snake, actually. That sounds like a good...
Yes, but then very easy in a social deduction game to be like, she's always the snake. We always don't do what she says.
That's true. Okay.
Although then that does add a double layer, because how can you bluff them into the wrong answer if you are
exactly.
Even so.
Yeah.
But I think it's an easy fix. So we played a lot of Jackbox at Knockdown, and that has a similar sort of vibe to it in terms of like guessing answers and trying to trick people into picking your answers. And I do now know most of the answers from the earlier editions of Jackbox, because we played through it so much. So I don't think eventually when we run out we'll be able to play it. But it's fun while it's lasting, and I'm very much enjoying it. So,
hopefully there'll be convention packs for it and little expansions and stuff like that. Or maybe Big Potato will do some online stuff for it. There's
Yeah.
a few extra questions, that sort of thing.
Or they'll just like very kindly send me their list of questions that didn't quite make it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Because I don't
What
need
should we
the fancy cards. Who do I need to email?
So snakes, which we like a lot.
Yes, I really enjoy snakes.
Is beautiful. And the last thing on our list from several days ago is...
Which also, if you've listened to the previous one, is still on a post-it note.
It's still a
It's
post-it note.
now written bigger, though, so I can actually read it without having my glasses on. But
Yes, we did some user testing. We came out with some
Larger
some
handwriting.
feedback. Larger handwriting was required. So I wrote a cardboard manifesto.
You did.
And it's something I feel I've still not fully articulated properly to the degree that I want. But what it's about is the idea that better art makes better games.
Yes.
Which I need to preface by saying, yes, you could reskin any game in almost any format and it would work still, wouldn't it? It would still work in some way.
The mechanics still work, the same stuff comes out of it.
Yeah. But also, you could also make it bad, couldn't you?
Yeah.
So with that aside, my whole cardboard manifesto, which wasn't what you expected it was going to be, I think.
No, we had an interesting conversation about this because I thought Chris was going to take a slightly different angle on it. So my brain went, oh yeah, no, that's a great one because you talk about this, and this. And then I read it after you'd done it and was like, oh, interesting. Wasn't what I thought you were going to do.
Yeah, so what my argument is that we should, as an industry, encourage our creators to make more interesting art for their games. And by more interesting, I mean art that doesn't rely on tropes quite as much, or if it does it in a way which is spectacular or uses a interesting, more diverse art style, or a uses like different ways of approaching the same subject. So examples of which I'm always going to bring up this game for the next 10 years, I'm sorry, but Oath, wonderful art style, and very much like a game that exists in our world, in the sense of like it could exist in anyone's world, anyone's life quite easily. You can look at it on the shelf and say, hey, that belongs in nearly anyone's house. It could just exist there. And where that's not true of, say, a lot of like fantasy adventure games, for example, which use a very similar pseudo-cartoony comic book style on top of a load of fantasy tropes, which don't actually give you anything as a player. So because that stuff, all it does is it signifies to you that you are playing a fantasy game. And in fact, that's often how you play it. You often, if you've ever read a fantasy book and thought, okay, that place in that fantasy book with 14 L's, and it's not in Wales, but with 14 L's in it, I'm not going to ever try and pronounce that name. I'm just going to remember how it looks. And if I'm asked to pronounce it, I will now say it in a completely bizarre way, because obviously it doesn't matter. And that's kind of the fluff we're trying to ignore. We're trying to ignore that we're trying to get past that fluff of art and signifiers like that kind of like weaken your ability to engage with the game. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. I don't know if I've fully done it justice, but the general concept is that I believe that we can find ways of adding art to our games, which is like new. It doesn't have to rely on tropes and doesn't have to have the edges taken off. You know, I think a lot of people end up on the product side of designing the game and feel that they need to make it the most mass market thing ever, whereas actually having one really clear message that is consistent throughout the art, throughout the theme, throughout the mechanics as well, which should obviously all tie together, can make a better game experience for everyone. And that also it makes it more accepting to a broader spectrum of people if it looks like something they could have in their life that doesn't contain all the signifiers that say, hey, you need to be a nerd to play this, you know, you need to be into cyberpunk to play this, which a lot of games kind of do fall back on. And that's it, really. That's kind of where I am with games and art at the moment.
Yeah, so interestingly, like, I thought my take on it was very different, but one thing that you did talk about when we chatted about it after it went in the mag was you talked about more the lifestyle side of things. So not only in the sense that it can appeal to a wider audience, or it can have like an interesting niche that pulls you in that doesn't require you to have certain things, but also where it sits. Could you imagine this being in your house as part of your life, as part of the art that fits in with you?
Yes, yeah. So, and that, I think that means that yes, there are a lot of people do. A lot of people do spend their time, like developing an identity that's to do with, say, their enjoyment of comic books or something like that, right? And that's absolutely fine, and that's cool. They want their art on the walls to be that. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people have art on the wall that they just like, and I'm kind of advocating for that in games.
Yeah.
Like
the physicality of being present.
And
do I want it there?
Yeah, and also that it's to do with some deeper understanding of yourself that isn't a surface level cultivation.
Yes.
Of your own, like, the identity you want to show other people. Obviously, there is obviously going to be a part of that in any choices you make like this. You know, we make these choices about like kind of everything in our life. But I think we could approach games in a similar way to we approach like art on the walls or other things like that, which are less to do with cultivating that kind of like outward facing identity and more to do with like the things we want to have as a permanent thing in our life or semi-permanent thing in our life, if that makes sense at all. I think I was more articulate in the magazine. I hope I was.
As I say, read it and find out.
Yeah. As I say, I was really fired up for this when we started recording 2 days ago. And if you hear a load of jump cuts just in this little section here, it's because Charlie's just dying from having a coughing fit, basically. So
100% not COVID.
Not COVID at all.
It is just general horrendous cold because we've been inside for 18 months and haven't caught any cold since. But
yes, we're all weak, aren't we?
Let's
be honest. Here we are again.
In
a slightly different room, a little bit later.
Yeah.
Having been kicked out of the nicely soundproof studio. We're now in the games room, which you may have seen from social media.
Yeah. Which is just full of advent calendar stuff right now.
We actually can't really move it.
We're like overwhelmed with advent calendar stuff. It's boxes everywhere.
No one tells you about that. Tells you about that about Santa's Grotto. Is that it's actually like a health and safety issue.
Yeah, and I don't think ever they fully consider the fact of how many presents it is.
It's a lot
to wrap.
I mean, it's just terrifying. But as we've been kicked out of the nice studio, we're going to say thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us. Where should we send people today? I think we should send them to YouTube.
Head to YouTube.
Yeah. We're going to send Charlie to the pharmacy.
I think that's probably necessary.
I'm going to go back to my desk.
We'll put all the links you need in the description.
Absolutely.
So that you can check us out in all forms, all social media, the main website, tabletopgaming.co.uk, plus check us out on YouTube, where I don't always sound as gravelly as this, and TikTok. That's the one I'm having fun with at the moment.
Yeah, people like the TikToks.
Yeah.
I don't understand them. I'm too old. But yes, thank you for joining us. And now's a great time to subscribe to the magazine.
It is.
There's
tons of cool stuff.
Because there's some quite good stuff coming up. I must say, there's always good stuff coming up. But next issue is an absolute banger. We've got a like exclusive scenario for Vaesen, which is the Free League investigative spooky scenario, and that'll be landing at the end of the month, just in time for Halloween.
Woo!
Yeah, so you can like get a bit freaked out in the Vaesen mythic Britain setting.
It's very cool.
It is very cool. It's very nice that they're doing British
like
folklore and spooky things and stuff like that. It's a really cool scenario. If you've not played Vaesen before, it's like quite a nice thinky game in a sort of Call of Cthulhu kind of way, but it's still using that Mutant Year Zero system of dice balls. So if you're rubbish at percentages like I am, that's quite useful.
Nice.
So yeah, we'll see you all soon, and goodbye.
Bye.